All right, hi, welcome to Ignite. My name is Rhett Krull. I'm one of the technical architects at our Reston MTC. So I focus more on infrastructure, but also cover areas around identity, mobility, cyber protections, and I've been sort of focused on that space and just seeing all this come together, especially as cloud capabilities, cloud platforms, and scale, right, allow us to achieve more. A lot of the customers that I engage with, they could be large enterprise customers, also government customers quite often. There's a common theme that they're all sort of challenged by is having all these different agents and protection offerings, right? Trying to be forced onto their clients and, of course, challenged with mobile and just mobility in general, people off the network. One of my first jobs I only accessed when I was on the corporate network at my desk on a desktop, right? Of course, I had a listing of all my username and passwords that I used to log in, so thankfully things have changed. But we need to bring greater simplicity to managing, deploying, enrolling. There's always, I think, this conflict in terms of providing a great user experience, but protecting the data. And we need to provide a better integration between those two approaches. So part of what we have put out within Microsoft 365 is kind of bringing it all together, from your endpoints to your users, to your data, to your infrastructure, and trying to bring an integrated platform approach, right, that could hopefully drive greater simplicity, greater efficiency, better user experiences, and that's what I'm here to sort of showcase. Of course, over the last number of years, we've added numerous capabilities, all these different advanced threat protection services. Top of my head now, we have 5 or 6 different services, whether it's within Azure, Office 365, et cetera. But our real goal is to make sure that we have advanced protections across the whole threat landscape. Right? And of course, we're seeing these threats change drastically. 5, 10 years ago, the threats we were facing are far different than what we face today. And of course, the volume of the threats is also expanding. So we need capabilities where our customers can just consume our protections that we've baked in, partner, augment, do what they need to, but at least have a base level of high protection. Right. So that's kind of what we're focused on. And as part of that, of course, we have capabilities built into Office 365 with Office ATP. We have our device-focused protections with Defender ATP, which of course we've rebranded to just Microsoft Defender ATP instead of Windows. So we definitely want to move to a platform-agnostic approach to providing advanced protection, right, and response capabilities. And I think, as with anything, if we don't leverage automation, we're always going to be challenged. A lot of the folks that I talk with, the amount of events that they have to sift through every day just to figure out which ones they should focus on, which ones they can't, is the most time-consuming thing. So we need to be able to filter through the noise and bring the relevant data and information to the analyst to be able to properly respond to those threats. Now, I've got a couple different experiences here. We're going to start off with Windows Autopilot. Is anyone using Autopilot today within their organization? Okay. I definitely think, and it's been a long time since I did desktop type stuff, but just the whole experience of enrolling this new device right out of the box, it can really transform how we approach things and how we can deliver new capabilities. Let me switch over real quick here, because honestly, this takes a little bit of time. I'm not quite sure what the network is like here. But so with this device, this is the out-of-the-box experience. So we're going to run through what that looks like. We're also going to look at some of the other newer capabilities. We are marching toward a world without passwords. Right? We want to get away from passwords as much as we can. Unfortunately, just about most application in the last 20 years was written to accept username and password. So that has to be addressed, but we'll walk through that. So here I'm going to go through, pick my keyboard, skip, and right, if you're connecting to a Wi-Fi network, this would then ask you to actually connect to that network. One of my first Surface Book 4s, or Surface Pro 4, I bought myself when it first came out. It was right after Christmas. I didn't really get anything fun for Christmas. I was like, I want to log in with my face to my device. So I went to our Microsoft store up in Tysons Corner, Virginia, which is close by our office. And I bought a device. I unboxed it right there on the counter. I powered it up. I said it was corporate owned. I put in my email after connecting to the public Wi-Fi. And then it just enrolled, right? And my policies, my apps, my profiles all got pushed down. Within 15 minutes, I had single sign-on. That was like my first experience. This is like 2014. I was like, this is amazing. I'm never going back. And of course, we keep iterating and adding new capabilities. So in this case here, we're actually customizing the branding right out of the box. So every Windows device is going to check into us as part of its initial sort of initialization process to see if there's an autopilot profile assigned. So in this case, there is one. And it's assigned into our, what we call our EXP environment. It's really our experiences environment that we use across the MTCs worldwide. So I'm going to log in with the user. Now this user has also been configured for passwordless sign-on. So I've got a device that this user was registered for. I have to pick the appropriate number on this device and then use Face ID to confirm. So instead of using a password, I just used MFA as my primary authentication to enroll that device. Now as this kind of bakes here, you're going to see we're going to get to a splash screen. That splash screen is going to go through a number of different registration processes and deployment of policies and apps. And we're going to see that. And as that's working, we're going to go on the back end and take a look at all the integration of the platform and what we're actually doing here. Because in my testing, this might take 20 minutes or so. All right, it just depends. And you'll actually see that reboot a couple times, because a few of the policies that I've set forth also upgrade this device from Windows Pro to Windows Enterprise. We changed the device name. Right, so I have a naming template standard that I put forth. So a number of different automated approaches here. So we'll switch over. All right, so why don't we first take a look, and I haven't used our new device management portal yet, so I'm more comfortable accessing Azure through, or Intune through the Azure portal, so I'll stick to that for today. But I'm going to go into Azure, and I can take a look here, take a look at device enrollment. This is where I configured some of the capabilities for Windows, such as automatic enrollment. So any Windows 10 device that enrolls into my Azure AD is going to be managed by Intune. That's it. And there's no other configurations I have to do. Then I could go in and take a look at the actual autopilot. Of course, we have Windows Hello for Business capabilities here. But I can go into my autopilot profiles, pick my profile. This is one that we're actually being assigning to this specific device. I could take a look at what that out-of-the-box experience could be. And, right, do I want to have the user accept licensing terms or privacy settings? Probably not, right? So we're going to forgo those, block those. We could deploy, we could set a device naming template here, pick if the user is admin or standard, right? So I could really do a lot of customizations that I would normally do. Ultimately, our goal is to enable you to not have to re-image devices, right? This should be an automated process. Whatever configurations, controls, policies have to get pushed down should be done dynamically every time the device registers. Because let's say if a user leaves and you want to re-provision that device, what if you could just hit a button and it just wipes everything, maybe even keeps it managed, right? And then a new user within your org just logs in and whatever policies and profiles gets pushed down to them automatically. So instead of a static thing, it becomes much more dynamic. And then your user, in fact, I had a colleague the other day. He's been at Microsoft for 15 or so years. So he gets a device, he connects it via network, he pixie boots, a new image gets pushed down. That's just his norm, right? And he's going through this and kind of fumbling with it. I'm like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Just reset the device, take it home, and then just enroll it. And for him, it was like, what do you mean? That sounds kind of out there. But I think a lot of times we have to look at things slightly differently than when we've traditionally approached it, right? Just because we've had a policy or some configuration for the last 10 years doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't think, are there new ways that we could achieve the same outcome, right? So if I take a look at let's go back out of the profiles. So as part of this device, and it's going through a couple different steps, it's a little bit hard to see, but at this point, the device is already registered with Intune. It's been upgraded to Enterprise. Now it's just about security policies and applications being pushed down to that device. So if I take a look at my device configuration here, I can take a look at my profiles. And of course, within my profiles here, I've got numerous different things. I did create my own specific Ignite policy just to have a little bit more control than we normally have. I also configured a profile that leverages our administrative templates. That this actually configures our OneDrive known folder move. So dynamically, just via policy, my background, or sorry, my desktop, my pictures, my documents will automatically be reconfigured to point to the OneDrive for Business profile for me. So therefore, I'm protected by ransomware. If there was anything to happen on that device, well, my documents are already in OneDrive. I could go into my OneDrive for Business and hit recover, right? So quickly and easily. So honestly, this device to me doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's just a way that I access, but I also access quite commonly across my mobile device. Or honestly, in about 20 minutes, I could enroll in a new device and be back where I am today. So that's our whole process. Understandably, you guys, I'm sure, have a number of applications and other plugins that may have to be looked at as part of this process, but we definitely want to help you achieve a greater streamlined and efficient approach. Some of the other capabilities that I'm actually launching here, this is where I am actually upgrading the enterprise, or upgrading to the enterprise version of Windows 10. And I'm doing this simply by inputting our public KMS key for Windows 10 client. If the user who's enrolling this device is automatically licensed for Windows E5 or E3, it's automatically going to upgrade them using that license. I don't have to install a Mac key or anything like that, right? And that user could be anywhere in the world as long as they have a network connection and enrolling this device. Here I'm configuring our Defender ATP. I take a look at some of our integrations with Defender ATP and just sort of run through what this looks like. So if I go into Windows 10 here, I could pick my profile, and within that profile, I could go in all the way down, Defender ATP. All I have to do are these 2 steps and hit save. And any Windows 10 enterprise client in my environment will automatically start feeding Defender ATP continuously. So extremely simple. There's no agent to install. It's already embedded into Windows 10. It's just about setting the actual configuration, these 2 steps, and everything's done. So automatically, the environment is set for Intune to manage all Windows 10 devices. And now with this policy, all Windows 10 devices automatically report to Defender ATP. Right, and that gives you the endpoint detection response capability, enterprise protection features, and a whole host of other things, right, that we're continually adding to. I work with a number of government customers, and they have reporting requirements, software inventory, hardware inventory, vulnerability assessments and scans. This product is definitely transforming how they are looking at meeting these requirements, right, because we're baking more and more of this functionality into Defender ATP. And then we'll show as we expand our platform to integrate all these other capabilities. Right. So let's jump out of this real quick. Some of the other profiles that I've configured here, of course, things like BitLocker, Windows Hello for Business. Right. So probably in just about 5 or so minutes, this device over here on this side is actually going to start prompting us, hey, let's set up Windows Hello for Business. Let's get this device up and running. Right? But at no point am I going to enter a password on this device. Right? It's all passwordless and Windows Hello for Business right out the gate. Right? So that way, if this device were to be compromised, there's not a hash resident on the device that could be used for lateral movement within that environment as well. Right? And it's very specific to this device. So as I go forth here, let's actually jump out of this. Let's go into our Defender ATP tool. Let me just reset it just so we have it. So here I see at November 5th at 10:28, we've had some suspicious activity. Well, that was just a minute ago. If I go back to my profiles, that activity was caused because I automatically ran a PowerShell script to simulate a threat on that device that's still actually registering. So before it's actually at the user, we've already detected a threat, and we are taking action responding to that threat through Defender ATP. So if I were to take a look at what actually occurred, so here I see that there was a process injection that occurred on this desktop name at this time. These are the recommended actions. And it's automatically investigating already. So Defender ATP is already assessing this threat even before the device is at the desktop for the user. And I could take a look at this threat here Let me actually move this down just a little bit so we see the whole view. So here, if I'm taking a look, so just in the last X minute, we have assessed 918 different entities, different files, processes, servers, files, IPs, right? And this is running today. It'll continue to run for the next several minutes, right? And of course, it's going to run even more because we're going to do more stuff on that device as well. But now I don't just have to constantly be looking at logs and monitoring. I have an intelligent system that's helping me. And we're going to increase the amount of help it's providing for our customers. Right? This is, of course, a cloud service. Every month we add new features, new functionality into this platform. And it's really exciting to see. Right? We've already announced just yesterday a number of enhancements to this platform. And we're going to see that coming forth today. So today we have Windows 10. We have Mac OS clients directly embedded. We have partnerships with others. We've already announced our intent for Linux, right, to have a native client on Linux. And I really do see a future where all platforms and device types can feed into one tool and provide it, right, a enhanced level of protection, right, and capability. Right. So if I were to take a look at the actual, right, the different alerts associated with this, it's going to gather different evidence. If this was a more broad spectrum thing, you would see different devices being sort of correlated here together. Let me go into our dashboard here, and let me go into that command line. So here in this case, there was some PowerShell execution that occurred, and we're still waiting for some of the actual details to trickle in. But if I take a look at this PowerShell, which actually it's not quite ready yet to show me, but in just a few minutes, it'll gather enough information, it'll actually be able to tell me what that PowerShell command was. Right? And then I could take different actions. Right? In this case, I could say, this is a indicator of threat and add custom sort of threat intelligence data into my tenant. So that way, if this were ever to pop up again, right, I'm automatically going to know that, well, that's a bad action, that's a bad file. Right? If I were to go to the actual device itself, let's go to that one real quick. Snooze that. So in this case, I'm taking a look at the actual device. We're still bringing in the details here. Of course, the device is still registering over there, but I could see that these two events, right, came together down here. I could take a look at some of the actions I could take right now, and this will actually build out more. But in this case, I could initiate a live response. This will actually give me a command line prompt to that device remotely. And at this point, I could contact a threat expert. So with the threat experts, that's kind of we're giving you a lot of information here, but if you still need help, you could contact us, and we will have someone on the phone with you to help walk through what needs to be done to actually mitigate that threat. Right? So it's kind of looking at us at an extension of your cyber operations. Yeah. We're not looking to replace, we're just looking to help and augment, right, and make it easier. Right? So I want to show a couple of the other integrations that we've done. So within Defender ATP, right, we have a number of capabilities. Of course, I could send to Power BI. I could create new fancy dashboards. I could integrate with existing SIEM offerings here. So we have HP, ArcSight, Splunk, and then generic ones just ruled out. I could add custom detections, custom indicators, allow and block lists. So if I know there's a particular file I want to block on all my clients, I could define that, and Defender ATP will work with Defender AV just right on the endpoint and block those files right off, even if the greater world doesn't think that those files are bad. Right? If I were to go, and let me jump over to the other areas here. If I were to go to my CASB tool, so this is Microsoft Cloud App Security. We're taking a look at all cloud applications here within this tool, not just Microsoft, but in fact, our catalog today has over 16,000 different apps that we've cataloged, right, and measured. So I could take a look and say, well, Exchange Online and Office Online are good, but maybe some of these down at the bottom, there could be ones that we're just not sure about. Maybe it's a custom thing, right? Or if I take a look at all applications, take a look at that catalog, I could go down and pick which ones I want. Right? So these are the ones that I'm actively monitoring. Right? So if I were to take a look at Office 365, I see that it's connected. I could take a look at details in terms of how many users are using that application, how much data is flowing to that application. But I wanted to point out that I'm getting all of this data through the integrations we have within the platform. Right? So this data is all being fed directly by Windows 10 endpoint users. Now this data is being fed from Defender ATP natively. So I didn't have to do anything to configure firewalls to be pushing out the syslog and bringing in that data here. It's already integrated. There's nothing I have to do. Now I could have multiple different feeds, right? So I could have a demo report, right, coming in. I could have, right, if you wanted to, you could use Cloud App Security as a proxy in combination with Azure Active Directory conditional access policies. And so that data could be fed through here. Obviously, we're not using too much of that within my environment. But most of our feeds are being done just directly with Defender ATP, right? So we have a number of different, sorry about that, number of different applications that, right, that we're looking at, different IPs, users, machines, and traffic. Right? If I were to go back into our Defender ATP real quick, let's take a look at some of the different devices. So is this device, let me just double check, it might have rebooted. No, it just timed out, right? Oh, but now this will come up. Yeah, I tried before the demo to actually set a timeout of the screen, so because it says right out of the box, right? So in this case here, I've actually changed the background, the lock screen as well as part of this process. And the very first thing I'm being prompted here is to set up Windows Hello for Business. All right. So let's actually go through that prompt real quick. Put it on the bigger screen just so people can see it. So my device actually has a couple different options. Because it's a Surface Pro 4, I do have an IR camera that's built into this device. And of course, that's the first thing it's giving me. Use face recognition. This, my keypad also has a fingerprint reader. So it's offering to use fingerprint as well. So this worked last night, so let's make sure it works right now. So I'm going to set up face. So in my case here, I'm going to look at the screen. There we go. And now it wants me to create a PIN. This PIN is specific to this device, right? So I can't use that same PIN across other devices to unlock that same credential. And of course, I could sign in various different ways. In this case, I'm just doing push notification down to my device, which I hit approve. And now I'm on board. So just enrolling this device, and this will take me to set up my PIN. And I'll set up my super secret PIN code. And then in just a minute, this will take me to the desktop. So from start to finish, in what's been 22 minutes, right, went from an out-of-the-box experience to now a device that has policies, it's got applications, has customizations, configurations. The user was prompted twice in this process for multi-factor authentication. Firstly, to actually enroll the device in the organization. Secondly, to establish that strong credential using Windows Hello for Business. And now we're at the screen. So I'm so used to touching screens, I wanted to touch that screen. So in my case here, right, we're going to go through. Right, I've got a number of different things that I'm going to show off as part of this device. But it says my device is ready. And my device is ready because my device is compliant with my policies that I've set forth in Intune. I could certainly set a policy that said, you know, require BitLocker disk encryption, require Defender ATP to say your device is good to go, right? And have many different checks. And these different checks, or I'll call it interrogations of the user of the device, moves us into this model of zero trust. We're never going to trust a user in this device just because they're on the network. We need to continually assess and interrogate that device and that user, make sure they're not under threat, make sure there aren't suspicious patterns that are going on. You know, because a lot of the threats that we see today, they actually mimic what would be an insider threat, you know, someone on the network. So we need a greater ability to always check for this, right, for this type of threat. And as we go forth, we'll see in just a few minutes different apps and policies. So I've already got Office Pro Plus installed on here. That was all automated as right as part of my Intune deployment. I also know, just based upon my testing, that the wired internet connection is working great versus the Wi-Fi in the hotel I was testing with last night. So, and a couple other settings here. We're still waiting on the noon folder move from OneDrive for Business. We're going to see that in a couple minutes. And by the time we're done here, we're actually going to take a look and see some of the built-in data protection features. Because let's say a user has data that has PII or some other sensitive information. No matter where they save that file, if they save it locally or save it within OneDrive or SharePoint or send it through Exchange, we want to take some action, right? We might want to make sure that file is protected, at least be able to flag that file and make sure that somebody can follow up. So as this is moving forward here, let me move back over. Okay. So if I take a look at my device list here, right, we have a number of different devices, different versions. If I were to take a look at this device here, you'll see some of the other features we have. So we already talked about, right, starting a automated investigation, setting up a live response, which is a command line view back to that remote client. I can collect an investigation package. This will essentially create a bundle that'll be uploaded into the portal here that the analyst will be able to access. It'll have all the files, the policies, everything like that. We're even moving to allow for live memory dump as well, right? So if you want to do a deep, sort of deep level analysis. But on this device, I also have the option to run an AV scan remotely on that device. I can go in and restrict applications from executing remotely on that device. I can even set the Windows firewall to isolate that machine and only allow that machine to feed into Defender AV, or sorry, Defender ATP. Right? And then at the very least, I don't know what to do, let me consult a threat expert. Okay? So if I were to take a look at this specific user, let me zoom back out. Right, I see all the different alerts and events that are associated with that user. As you'll see, we also have integration into Azure ATP. So Azure ATP is a user entity behavioral analysis tool. So what is normal within your environment? Is it normal for that user to access SharePoint 2 a.m. on a Saturday from this device, this IP? If so, good. If not, maybe we should do other checks, right, to make sure they are. But if we take a look, and I could open up this user in Azure ATP, we're going to take a look. So this is Jonathan. And so far, we've only got this single alert allocated for Jonathan. But I'd be able to take a look at any other sort of details. What other computers have this user logged into? All right? And I could jump into that computer, right, and take a look at what the details are here. In this case, this specific device is not under threat, so we're good to go on this one. But just automatically taking a look, and Defender ATP is also, it's focused on legacy authentications, Kerberos and NTLM-based authentication. So it's focused on your core infrastructure on premises, and then Defender ATP is looking for all those other signals associated with your devices, and then our Microsoft Cloud App Security is taking a look at SaaS-based apps, modern authentication into those applications. And we should all be tying this back into Azure Active Directory as the core identity platform, right? Because within this environment here, I've connected this device directly to Azure AD through a user that's in Azure AD. Now, that user was sourced from local AD, but we could still leverage those native cloud tools to drastically enable a better user experience with that. Right? So let me go back into my device. By this point here, we should have some more details in terms of what that incident looks like. All right. So here's that incident here. Let me assign this to myself. Okay. And then I'm going to go into these different environments here. Take a look at that device again. So now this device has bubbled up some more details here. We're still waiting on some of the other areas, such as a recommendation, software inventory, any discovered vulnerabilities. Those will bubble in over time here. Some of the other areas I could take a look at within Defender ATP is overall trying to improve our security posture. So this scoring mechanism, which I'm sure you've seen within Office 365 and Azure Active Directory, Azure itself has it as well. Defender ATP has it. We just announced yesterday, right, our compliance score and insider threat risk. So here we take a look at this scoring mechanism is to just help me make better decisions on what would be most impactful for my organization to be better protected. Right, so I could take a look within these different improvements. So enabling endpoint detection and response, enabling AV, OS updates. These are very Windows-centric today. You will see as we broaden this ecosystem, right, to accomplish other platforms, you're going to see, right, a broader focus. Right? If I were to take a look at threat analytics in terms of Defender ATP here, we're taking a look at all the different threats that we're seeing throughout the world. And it's not new, it's not unique just to your tenant. Right? This is more broadly what we are seeing at scale. So I can take a look at a given threat, and we're going to give you our intelligence in terms of what actually makes up this threat, what are the different mitigations, what are the detections as part of the threat, any references to third-party information that we can provide, and then ultimately we're going to tell you within your environment, you had 7 systems with this threat. 2 of them are still active, right? So maybe this will help me make a more focused decision on which devices I need to focus in on. And it's kind of interesting that these threats bubbled up more over the last couple days. So we'll have to take a look at that. But being able to take a look and have as much intelligence as possible for you to make the best decision possible to help with your organization. As we move through and add more functionality for automating incident response, I think that's really where a lot of the value is going to lie. Having one place to be able to protect these different devices and then to automate the response we're going to do, right? Because we're going to continue to see the threats we face continue to evolve, continue to grow, right? In not only scope, but also just the impact that they're going to have on any one organization here. So let me take a look. Let's go back to this device. Let me just take a look, see where we're at. So we're still bubbling here. The OneDrive is up to date. Oh, come on. All right. So right now we are synchronizing files on this device. I'm just waiting for my one policy to kick in. I'm going to try to send this into sort of expedited mode just with the time we have left and just give it a quick restart. And then that device will check right back in with Intune and sort of even more policies will come down right at a quicker pace here. All right, so at this point we've talked a little bit about Azure Active Directory. We've talked a little bit about Autopilot, talked a little bit about Intune, we've gone into Defender ATP, we've gone into Azure ATP, we've gone into MCAS. I showed you the passwordless sign-on capability that we can enable today, and that's using our Microsoft Authenticator app. We could also use security keys like YubiKey or many others, right, are now making these keys. And we'll give that just a moment. So I didn't even really have to look at the device. I just walked in front of it, right? And it signed me on. So I'm just waiting for the known folder move to come down because that'll actually give me some files that I can play with. One of those files is to launch another attack on this device. Another file has confidential information, and we want to automate the protection of that. Let me go through some of the newer functionality that we have added to Defender ATP. One of which is, right, if you're just not sure where to start, right, we've added this section for a eval lab. So if you wanted to, let's say if you guys were not even licensed for Defender ATP today, if you just want to test it out, you could sign up for a trial and then leverage the evaluation lab to go through and sort of test it out, kick the tires. Right? For a number of the things that I've shown in terms of my demo attacks, we do have simulations and tutorials that you could follow with actual files, right? So you could download these files. In fact, there is this fileless attack is the attack that I carried out and I pushed through Intune on my device, right? So it did a process injection and then ran a encrypted PowerShell command, right? But there's various different other ones here. Here's one to actually walk through what does live response actually look like? What are the things I could do using live response to that endpoint? Automatic data classification. You know, a key thing about our platform is that it's already integrated, right? So when a user creates a new file locally on their device and just saves it to, say, their desktop or just some other random folder on that device, because that device is always reporting to Defender ATP, Defender ATP is automatically working with our MCAS tool. It's also working with Azure Information Protection and sort of checking, hey, does this file have any sensitive information? In the case of Windows Information Protection, that's a policy that gets placed on this device directly, and that's what we're going to pivot over to right now. Oh. There we go. All right, so now I'm on this device here. You could see, right, a couple new folders, new files actually. And then we've added this little icon onto those files. That icon means that now those folders, those files are protected by Windows Information Protection. So there's a policy that's automatically going to restrict the ability to cut, copy, paste between managed applications and unmanaged applications. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to open up this file. Of course, this file is going to have some sensitive data in it. Of course, this is the very first time that I'm opening up Office whatsoever. So it'll take just a minute to log me in. It's already applied the Azure Information Protection label right in my Office client. Let's try to expedite. I don't want to do that. There we go. All right, so now Scott is logged in. Let me try to copy some data here. I'm just going to open up a non-managed application. And I'm going to try to paste this content. All right, and now this content, I'm being told my organization does not allow this, right? Now again, this is out of the box. We're now 33 minutes into this presentation. So I did, at this point today, I did push down the Azure Information Protection client via Intune automatically. We've already integrated that into our mobile Office applications. It's integrated now. It's rolling out to our web applications. It's been in the Mac version. And then once all those are set, we're going to go back to Windows and integrate the Azure Information Protection directly into Office Pro Plus. Right? But at least today, I could still automate the installation and enrollment of that client device. Right? So as I go forward here, let me do something else. Let me go hit File, Save. I'm going to save a copy of this file. And I'm only saving a copy really to make it trigger right away. You know, if I waited a little bit of time, it would pick up these sensitive information types. But a save triggers the check as well. So in my case here, a couple different things have happened. Right. So because of our policies, we are detecting that this has sensitive PII data in it. And because of our DLP capabilities and integration with Azure Information Protection, we're going to automatically enforce a policy. So in this case, it automatically set a label of highly confidential classification, sensitive PII. We're telling the user that, hey, you are against our policies here, and we're going to block you from having this saved out or shared out or other people from being able to access this. Right? Now, if I were to take a look at the actual file, let's go to the file here. I can take a look at information, and I can see that a protection policy has also been put forth here. So this protection policy is restricting that only the user that created that file now has access. There could be admins that have access as well, but now the user is going to be sort of continually prompted to clean up this file. Right? Now, last but not least, I also want to take a look at some other thing. And I kind of stumbled upon this last night, just as I was testing. Well, I don't need to save. So here I have another file. This file is a bad file. Right? And I'm going to open up this file. Try to remember what the password is for this file. Now, this is one of those files that are in Defender ATP for the simulation and testing. Right? So, of course, this one has macros. What good file does not have macros in it? Right? And then, of course, just because it's a demo file, we're going to run a little, hey, be careful here. So in my case here, this is going to execute. Now, this will throw probably about 10 or so additional flags up in Defender ATP because of what it's doing. And ultimately here, in just a moment, we should see a new file being dropped. So this file is being dropped to provide command and control capability to an external adversary, right? Just as part of this file. Now, interesting thing that I found out last night is testing this, because we're also using Windows Information Protection, and this is a protected spot, we actually block this from executing. So Windows Information is actually blocking this from executing the attack. So I can't show you the full demo, unfortunately, because I'm using these two in concert. But it's additional layers of protection, right? And again, we are continually adding more functionality and more capabilities. Right? It may take a few minutes for these actions to bubble up. Usually it's about 60 to 90-second delay. But we would see these capabilities being brought forth into Defender ATP as additional alerts. So here I see the event log was cleared, right? So we're continually starting to see more and more functionality built into here. So we've kind of gone from sort of front to back. I'm really excited just right in the time that I've been working with these platforms and tools, just how they have matured and the level of capability that we've brought forth. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the different comparison studies that have come out over the last year, 18 months or more, and just the progress we've made, I think, is phenomenal. And I really look forward to watching how this platform can better meet your needs and really accelerate your ability to drive better business value and certainly higher levels of protection. So, again, my name is Rhett Krula, technical architect at the MTC in Reston, Virginia. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully it was helpful. So.